And welcome to the lovely Sony lot. Just before we get started, how many people got to go through the demos today? Okay. I would say about 15–20%. That's not too bad. Before anything else, I wanted to acknowledge that the beginning of the year has been very challenging, and with the fires and with all the change in administration and all the other things that we've been challenged with, I want to thank all of the firefighters and the volunteers and everything to keep us running smoothly. We all have people that we know that have lost their homes or have been displaced from the fires, and I want to make sure that we acknowledge the heroic efforts of the firefighters over the last couple of years, or a couple of months. So my name is Mark Zorn. I am your current chair of SMPTE Hollywood, and it is my pleasure to introduce tonight's program. I also want to start by thanking our sponsor, ASG, for being our registration sponsor, and you've seen the credit roll for all the other sponsors that we have throughout the year. We are financially independent from SMPTE headquarters, and we have been for a few years, thanks to the sponsorship of all of our local sponsors. So, one of the things that also keeps us going is membership in SMPTE. Even though these programs are free to the public, a lot of it is driven by membership, and if you are not a current member, I encourage you to become a current member. For any of the students in the audience or recent students, your first year out of college is greatly reduced or free, depending on whether you were already in SMPTE when you were in college. Or is the first year for free for you or not?
My first year in college was free, but now
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, so we're trying very hard to build up our student program. So we have a great student outreach. We're working with a lot of the local universities and colleges and other educational institutions. The Cal State system has dramatically stepped up. We have new student organizations popping up at most of the Cal State students here or Cal State colleges here in Southern California, and this is also thanks to lots of effort by the people in this room. So thank you very much. Lastly, we have our annual technical conference coming up this October. And we're moving out of Hollywood, so we're not going to have it in Hollywood this year. It's going to be in Pasadena, where it used to be years ago. There are any number of reasons for this, but Pasadena we're going to give them another try, and hopefully it'll work out. It's a little bit different than it used to be, but I think it's going to be successful. I'm chairing the conference, so hopefully it will be successful. I'm also have a co-chair in the audience, Juan Reyes, that's going to be helping. Let's see. There's one other thing I wanted to, oh yes, nominations. So if you're in SMPTE and you're an active member and you want to participate in the leadership level, nominations are open to be serving on the board here in the Hollywood section. I'm the current chair, but my term ends in the end of June, and I'm looking to get more people on the board and keep that going. Nominations are open, and you can send them to me or to HollywoodSMPTE@gmail. The last nomination that I want to mention is for SMPTE Fellow. So if you are currently a SMPTE Fellow and you know somebody else that's worthy of becoming a SMPTE Fellow, nominations to become essentially a lifetime member of SMPTE, those nominations are open as well. And you can either tell the board back in New York, or I can take them as part of the nomination committee. But please, we also want to keep that continuum going as well. So that's the housekeeping for this evening. So thank you again for coming, and I want to hand it off to Lon Neumann to tell you what you've won.
So, I'm Lon Neumann. I commission and optimize fully immersive and other spatial audio installations. And this program tonight is a story about a system that enabled Sony Pictures to continue working on feature films during the lockdown of the pandemic, amongst other things, but it did do that for sure. And that system is 360 VME, the Virtual Mixing Environment. So the system, the 360 VME, reproduces the acoustic field of a fully immersive audio control room or dubbing stage with headphones, utilizing unique measurement technology so that your work can be taken anywhere with just a pair of headphones and 360 VME software with the, so I should stay on mic. So,
We're talking about audio.
yeah, so let me try that. So that's the basic concept. So the program tonight's going to be in two halves. We have the technical engineering half, and we have practical experiences. There'll be two halves. And on the technical side, I'll be doing some background topics that you can see here, and then we're going to be going live to the R&D lab in Tokyo to get a simulcast with the directors of the research and development, and so we're hoping to get some good information straight from the horse's mouths. And then we'll transition back here, and Doug Battle, who's here, will be doing presenting on some technical aspects of the measurement and rendering. And on the practical side, we'll have a panel of users from here at Sony Pictures in post-production, and there's going to be a Q&A in each half. So moving right along. So clearly we live in the age of multi-channel immersive audio in movies, in TV, in games, and music. At SMPTE, we commissioned a study group to explore the existing formats for immersive audio, and we identified 7 commercially viable formats. So, but for our purposes here tonight, we're going to declare spatial audio as formats beyond simple stereo. So, from the beginning, 5.1 has been the core of all of subsequent formats. And some of the basic precepts that were established at that time persist through to now. So such as that there is a central point of measurement. You can call that the reference listening position, maybe RLP, that left and right are at plus and minus 30 degrees or 60 degrees across the front, with the rears at 110 degrees, that all speakers are at equal distance from the reference position, that the speakers should be identical all around, that they should be matched in level, matched in timbre or tonal quality, matched power handling, and significantly, that the interchannel differential phase offset should be less than 90 degrees at all frequencies out to 10 kilohertz. It's useless to try it beyond that, but we do really want that to persist to out to 10 kilohertz to get the spatial imaging that we need. So then came 7.1.4, usually Atmos these days, And you can see that everything that I just showed you continues, the left and the right and the rear and the center, central reference position. It adds 2 rear channels and it adds some overhead speakers. So that led to needing to take measurements in that space that is now off the floor. It's at 1.2 meters above the ground, which is 47.25 inches. And so now from that reference position, we need to measure not just horizontal angles, but also vertical angles, angles of elevation. And to do that correctly, when you're doing your measurements, you need to get your measurement microphone, the capsule of your measurement microphone, right at that point in space that's above the reference listening position, directly above it, and at 1.2 meters, and that's where you take your measurements. So that needs to be done very precisely every time. It needs to be repeatable in perpetuity. Here's the thing that I want to stress, though, is when you look at that diagram, it looks like you could think of it as 2 horizontal slices, but that misses the point. What we're really trying to virtualize here is a hemispherical space, not horizontal slices. Here's a diagram or illustration that shows the concept of what I'm trying to describe. That's the space that we're trying to create, that we're trying to virtualize with 7.1.4. And here's an actual physical model of it, which Doug, I don't see you at the moment. This is in Tennessee at Murfreesboro State. So here's a case where a geodesic dome is the speaker mounts, and that's, by definition, they're all at identical positions from the rest of us. But the thing that makes 7.1.4 really sing is the perception of sounds between the speakers. As you can see from the illustration, all those little dots there could be objects or points of sound, but the point is it's not just the sound perceived as directly from the speakers that we're interested in. It's the stuff in between the speakers that creates that shell, that creates a hemispheric space. So this is our old friend phantom imaging, and we rely on it now. So here's a case of what not to do. This is known as the Haas effect, also known as the precedence effect. So the illustration is showing that if you had set up a pair of speakers to have a phantom image between them, that if the timing got delayed by as little as 0.6 of a millisecond, in other words, very small, that phantom image wouldn't be there. It would snap to the closest one. You would lose that phantom image. So we don't want to do that. We want phase coherence. We need equal distances and all those other things. So here's a summary of the things that we need. As I was saying, all of those things are necessary to get the phantom imaging that we need to complete that hemispheric shell, shall we say. So here's another interesting thing. There's actually 2 basic forms of immersive audio. There's egocentric configurations and allocentric configuration. Egocentric is what we've just been talking about, 7.1.4, home theater style or studios that deliver to it. But cinema is allocentric. Now, egocentric means that it's related to the center, concerned with the individual rather than the community. This is not the Freudian sense. This is different. So, but allocentric is different because it's being linked to a reference frame that's based on the external environment and independent of one's current location in it. It's community-minded. So the issue with cinema is having to cover a large audience with immersive programming. And you can see that from the picture that it's a big space with people sitting out. There is no central listening position that pertains. There's people sitting all over the place. So the solution that works is to have lots of speakers everywhere. So all along the side walls, there's tightly spaced speakers across the back wall and above as well. So the idea is that there's likely going to be a speaker close enough to where you want it to create the imaging that everybody in the room can hear it. They'll all hear it coming. We're not relying on phase coherence to create that. It's tied to the walls, and that's the way cinema works, and it does work. So, but there's two different models: allocentric and egocentric. Nobody knows those terms, but that doesn't matter. So now that brings us to binaural. I should have said hearing, because it's really binaural hearing, but so what in the world is binaural anyway? So binaural is just a fancy way to describe how we hear 3D space with two ears. So you can see from the illustration, a person sitting in that space is able to hear sounds coming from all sorts of different directions with just two ears. And clearly that's not what happens with stereo phones, as we all know. So that's different. So, but binaural sound enables the perception of sound coming from all over and all around the listener, out in front, on the sides, above, behind, in headphones. That's the thing. So it's really fully 3D sound in headphones. Stereo, when you think about it, it's not even 2D, it's 1D. There's only one dimension. It's just width. But not that that's bad. I mean, but sometimes people say it's 2D, and I quibble with that. Binaural is 3D. You get depth, you get height, you get width, all of that stuff in phones. That's the beauty of it. So there are several parameters that combine to create this binaural perception, as you can see. We'll come back to this in a minute. We don't have to dwell on it, but there are several requirements to make it work. So, but when it's done well, it's a beautiful thing. Hearing is believing. You got to hear it to understand it, but it totally rocks. But what is it that makes it work? I'm saying that it's a beautiful thing and it works, but what makes it work? Well, the answer to that, the simple short answer is HRTF. Well, what in the world is HRTF? Well, I'll tell you what. So HRTF is the head-related transfer function, and that's a mouthful of words, but I'll try to explain it. In a nutshell, HRTF is the acoustic path from a source to a listener. We're talking about the acoustic path from the source to the listener. And HRTF is what makes binaural work. So from the picture, you can see that there's a source out there in the front left, and the left ear will be hearing it directly, but the right ear will be hearing it as well after the sound has wrapped around the head. And so the head actually has an effect on what that right ear is going to be hearing. The size of the head, the shape of the head, the spacing of the ears, the protrusion of the nose. And then the brain, it's an amazing thing. The brain can process these really tiny minor variations that are decoded as direction and distance. But we all do it. It's just normal. It's organic. So here are I think I've mentioned this already, but these are many, maybe most of the factors of HRTF, but there's a lot of variation from person to person. Obviously, their heads are shaped differently and all kinds of things. So to really capture that HRTF, you got to measure individually, each person individually, for it to be correct. It's not one size fits all. So we really want empirical data that's collected directly where it happens. And that's measurements inside the ear canal, where all the parameters of HRTF are combined organically. So here's another key component of HRTF. So the physical instance of the ear, especially in this case we're looking at the outer ear, has a big effect on our perception of space. Things such as the size of the ear, the shape of the ear, the angle of the outer ear, is the earlobe attached or not, the folds of the pinny inside the ear, and the shape and the length of the ear canal. Here's an illustration from Gray's Anatomy that shows the ear canal and how it's connected to the outer ear. And we said earlier that HRTF is the acoustic path from a source to a listener. Well, the eardrum is the end of that path. That's where it's all over. But by measuring inside the ear canal, all the effects of HRTF are going to have happened there. Because that's where they all come together organically. So that's part of the beauty of the 360 VME system is that those measurements are taken right inside the ear canal. So as we all know, there's a lot of variations between people. So that's why it needs to be individualized to be correct. But there's also a lot of variation with any given listener based on the angle that a sound is impinging on the ear. You can see, this is all one listener, and you can see, if taken from different angles, you can see how the acoustic effects of the outer ear are going to be different for different angles. So, as I was saying, part of the brilliance of 360 VME is measuring the HRTF inside the ear canal. And taking that a step further, when you measure HRTF from the individual speakers in a space, coming from different angles, obviously, just like your ear hears it differently from different angles, but we're measuring inside the ear canal, so we're capturing all that. That enables modeling the 3D acoustic environment of your immersive studio. So this enables you to pan a sound into place with the Atmos renderer, and you'll hear it in the phones just as you would have heard it in the control room from the speakers. So some of the elements in the 360 VME personalization program are that the measurements are made inside the ear canal, so then the measurements are analyzed by FFT software, and individual personalized profiles are created for each listener, and the renderer then uses the profile to create the 3D binaural experience in the phones that matches the experience that you would have had with the speakers. And it's a virtual recreation of physically sitting in the mix position. You can work remotely on phones, having the experience of actually instead being seated at your mix console. So, in my opinion, what really distinguishes the 360 VME program is that it's done so well. It's really done very well. So, 360 VME is a standalone system that integrates into the usual workflows. It plays nicely with Pro Tools and Atmos on a laptop and can be as simple as that. So with that, I'm getting ready to hand off to our colleagues in the R&D center in Tokyo, Okimoto-san and Nakagawa-san from the Sony Tokyo R&D lab, and I'm hoping we're going to be hearing a little bit about the story of the development of the program and the challenge of frontal sound and the special challenge of meeting the expectations of professional movie makers. And with that, I'll pass the baton to Tokyo.
I'm Toru Nakagawa, Okimoto-san. Okimoto-san will join.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So we are now joining online from Japan. So I'm Koyuru Okimoto, the General Manager of Sony Audio R&D Group based in Tokyo. And also Toru Nakagawa, who is technical lead of VME, is joining today. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to talk about VME technology to you. And next, please. I think many of you have already experienced demo today and are already familiar with our technology. Yes, the VME is the game-changing remote sound creation technology, providing incredibly accurate reproduction of sound room acoustics on a pair of headphones. Next slide, please. This technology did not come out suddenly, but was born through the very long history and trust between Sony Pictures and our Sony R&D team. And I think this is the very unique activity that we have been able to do only because we have the expertise in entertainment and electronics technology. We would like to continue this kind of development activities on both sides and contribute to the industry. So from now, I'm going to hand over to Toru about the technology part. So please, Toru-san.
Thank you. So from now, I want to explain the VME technology. What is a key point? Okay. As already Ron-san, some knowledge already Ron-san explained, but I will repeat again. VME can reproduce this beautiful reference studio only by headphone, and the quality is, if you have experience, you can convince the quality. And first, I want to explain the basic principles. Now, so usually normal headphone can reproduce sound image inside of the head, but with this binaural and or HRTF technology, this technology can reproduce outside of head. It means even if accurate in case of VME, it can be reproduced speaker image with headphone. So keyword, very important keyword is HRTF, head-related transfer function. So from the speaker to the eardrum, sound waves affected by speaker characteristics, room acoustics, and head or body deflection, and the pinna and the torso and the eardrum. So this sound pass can represent by HRTF. HRTF means from speaker translation transfer function between from speaker to the eardrum. And another point is so that's why we need to personalize HRTF, because each person has different ear shape or different head or different body. So even if you listen to from the speaker sound, everyone listen differently. And you know that every ear shape is totally different, and it shows in HRTF characteristics like these graphic pattern. So this axis is angle, and this axis is frequency, and this color shows sound pressure. And from from 40K until 20K, it shows like look like pattern. And in academic paper, they called first peak is P1, and the second peak is P2, and the third peak is P3. And notch is first notch is N1 and N2. Sorry, this angle means median plane angle. So each person has a different P1, P2, P3, N1, N2 pattern. So this is a personalized HRTF. And I changed the view. This is a horizontal plane view. And even if horizontal plane view, you can see the upper the 2K or 3K, it affects pinna effect, and each person has different personalized HRTF pattern. And another, this is a subjective test in our laboratory. And this one shows we put the speaker in a median plane. And x-axis shows which angle playback from speakers. And y-axis means VME playback from so for example, this means playback from speaker and person answer the correct with VME. So in this case, speaker playback and headphone playback are different. So you can see personalized one is personalized figure shows almost right direction between speaker and headphone. But other person or dummy heads from BK, it's more, it can't be playback correctly. Okay. So from now, this is until this that's all from about the basic principle. So I hope you understand the personalized HRTF is very important for in this technology. So from now, I will explain what is VME and what is a key point of technology. So as you, if you have experienced VME, you understand the process, but I will explain again. So there is two different measure part. One is a measurement part and other is a playback part. In the measurement part, each guest, so point is we need to measure personalized HRTF. So each guest come to the actual stage and sit in the mixing console, center of the mixing console. And we will insert the our unique microphone. And we play back time stretched pulse TSP measurement signal from each speaker and to get the personalized HRTF. After that, we calculate the VME filter for the headphone and load to the our playback software and just hit the play with this application. So he is stay listen at the remote place, but he can listen actual mixing stage soundscape. And the key technology is not only one part. We think about it is very important to develop in every part. So first is I explain the unique microphone, and then measurement software and the playback software and the open back headphones. We develop all items. Now, first is a unique microphone. This is our special microphone, and actually this is 4th generation one. So this unique microphone can, it is very accurate to measure personalized HRTF because this structure can reach to near the eardrum. Also, here is a microphone capsule, and in this spring structure, microphone capsule don't touch to the ear canal wall. My capsule can float in the middle of the ear canal, so it's not affect to the additional reflection. Also, we pick up the microphone capsule to enter the ear canal, and this size around 2 millimeter, around the 2 millimeter. And the next is measurement software. So we design the measurement signal like TSP type or TSP length for the professional studio. And also this software can make the VME filter calculation and creates the VME profile with expiry date. And this graphic user interface is wizard style, and you just focus on the colorful button and click and go to the next, and finally finish. And Sony Pictures and us has long collaboration with in a VME test, so it's proven in several type of the interface in a professional studio. And next is a playback software. So as you can see, this photo, even if in a COVID, we connect remotely with Sony Pictures Creator, and we got a lot of feedback. What is useful for the professional environment? So this is I pick up only main three items. So one is a VME software is standalone, so it can be work for any DAW. And you can see the pull down here, and this is a load VME profile in one studio. But if pull down, you can jump to the another studio. It means in a Sony Picture has several beautiful theater, and he can switch to quickly and jump to the another studio. And one is third item is a deliver. So deliver means we measure the personal HRTF with room acoustics, but sometimes these reflection want to become dry. So this function cannot do the wet side, but reduce room acoustics, and creator can easy to adjust the sound quality in a direct part. And lastly, here is the open back. I hope you know the MDR MV1 as product, Sony product, professional product. But before Sony sell, originally this headphone developed between Sony and Sony Pictures. We made many generation of this prototype headphone, and we are collect from Sony Pictures create a voice, and finally we got the product. So point is this is open back studio monitor headphone. It means we believe for this kind of technology, open back is better than closed back or in-ear monitor headphone. And the second is we don't. So we need to add some additional signal processing. So in original headphone phase, we don't like some unique characteristics. So we try to make frequency response become flat. And comfort and lightweight for long time use for the professional. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. So now I would like to introduce Doug Battle, who will join us here and talk to us about some more about the measurement process for 360 VME. So here's Doug Battle, who is a professional support specialist at Sony. Welcome, Doug Battle.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Doug Battle, and I'm part of Hiroyuki Kamiro's professional solution team as part of the greater personal entertainment business team at Sony. And I'm here to talk to you today about the measurement process for 360 VME, which many of you experienced today, so it may be a bit redundant for some of you, but nonetheless, we will proceed. So a quick overview of what I'm going to talk about. The measurement process, first and foremost, how we prepare for the measurement process, the scan itself, how we generate one's VME profile, which is a .vme file, and then using the VME application, which was just mentioned, playback, whether that's Apple Music, from Pro Tools coming out of the Dolby Atmos renderer, and then STT file generation when necessary, which is a custom EQ file for the user. So first and foremost, you saw the microphones just a moment ago, but we begin the measurement process by cleaning the microphones, which is very important, especially this time of year. Half my team couldn't be here, not because of the VME process, but it's important to clean these. We use alcoholic wipes with each measurement, and we train our partners to do the same. As you see, the microphones, the red is the right microphone and the blue is for the left ear. So this is a photo of me putting in the microphones. You'll see that the mic is just inside the ear canal, floating in there, and sometimes it's necessary to use tape both on the ear or on the jacket to ensure that the microphone stays in place when a user is putting on their headphones or taking them off. The next step in the measurement process is simply measuring the size of the headphones. So the MV1s have ticked numbers on each side. We ask the user or the listener to put the headphones on their head and adjust to their comfort level. I then make note, and my team makes note of the number, because as you saw in the previous presentation, the angle of the head and the ear greatly impacts how one perceives space. So it's important to have a consistent placement of those speaker drivers every time. So we make note of the speaker or the size of the headphone. And next, my team and I open up the VME profile scanner software, where we simply go to settings, audio settings, and select our output, which is going to be the output to all of our speaker channels, as well as the two headphone outs. So it's a left and a right stereo out. And then the input is just a stereo input for the left and the right microphone, which goes inside the user's ear, as I showed on the previous slide. And from here, it's a pretty straightforward process. There's a few channel settings and simple profile settings, such as the number of the profile, which can't be redundant or it will overwrite the previous. And then we can put in information such as the company who's providing the measurement, in this case Sony, the place, this measurement in particular was at Jimmy Stewart, right next door, and the headphones that are used, which almost always are going to be the MDR MV1s, which also were previously discussed. So when we begin the scan, the first step is a pink noise that will play out of the center speaker, as many of you experienced today. Here you'll see a number of options, the playback channel, the speaker start channel. Sometimes that pink noise will be coming out of the third channel, depending on your configuration in Dante or Maddie, and sometimes it's the first. In this case, the center speaker was the first channel. Playback channel is 1, and we begin playback. The listener hears a brief pink noise, and then we can see a frequency response of both of their ears, blue being the left and red being the right. The next step of the process is sweep tones playing through each of the speakers. And in this example, I had used 13 channels because I was working in Sony 360 Reality Audio. If you're working in Dolby Atmos, 714, so that would be 12 channels, or it could be 16. VME supports, I don't know if this has been mentioned yet today, any format up to 16 channels at this point in time. So you could work in 5.1. You could also work in stereo, which I often do as well, if there's a space that I'm familiar with and want to take on the road with me. But nonetheless, in this instance, we're working with 13 channels, and we play sweep tones through each of the speakers. You can see, you actually can scroll when you're using the app to see the impulse response and the frequency response of each ear in reference to each speaker, and then the input level coming in there at the bottom. And the last sweeps that the listener is going to hear are headphone sweeps. So we ask the listener to put on the MDR MV1 headphones with the same size that we made note of earlier. The listener will then hear the same sweeps played in just the left and right driver, and we see their measurements on the headphone scan sweeps window on the right. And the final steps in creating a profile are, again, relatively straightforward. One factor here that you may want to make note of is selecting the LFE channel is important. We want to make sure the software understands which channel is going to be the LFE. Typically, that is the 4th channel for 714 or 916. But largely, these parameters stay the same. And we click create, and it generates a profile based on the measurements that have already been taken. At this point in the process, we ask the user to keep the headphones on, and we play back that pink noise again. And as some of you experienced today, this can be probably the most confusing part of the measurement process, because we ask the listener where they're hearing the sound from, and they always point to the center speaker. Sometimes they will tell us that the audio isn't coming through their headphones, that it's playing through the center speaker, that we're making an error, when in fact it is coming through the headphones, and it is a convincing center, phantom center over headphones. And so if that's not the result here, there's an issue, we have to backtrack. But every time I've done this, I've had that effect. And one more part of the process that you'll see on this slide is at the very bottom, it says the difference between speaker and headphones. Sometimes there will be a slight difference, and we want to account for that for when we're A/Bing so that there's not any kind of gain advantage for VME or the speakers when comparing the two. And so we'll go back at this point and we'll just adjust the headphone attenuation and so that it matches exactly what the speakers are going to play back. And at this point, a profile has been created. So we open the VME standalone application. The icon is what you see on the top left. And on the right, you see what the application looks like when you open it. And if you'll see in the screenshot that I took here, I have my mouse on profile, and just below that there is a folder icon. Here we can open up our folder and go to where we previously saved our profile. It's a .vme file. You double click it or you click open and it loads into the virtual mix environment application. And one more thing we want to check before we begin playback is the settings tab. So settings, and then under there is an audio settings button. Here for the standalone application, we will select our input, which in this case is 360 VME audio driver. Now, if I were working in Pro Tools, I would set my playback engine as the 360 VME audio driver. If I were using the external, as many of you I'm sure do working in post, Dolby Atmos renderer, my output's gonna be that 360 VME audio driver. If I'm listening to Apple Music, I actually in my system settings can set my default output to be the 360 VME audio driver, and I can listen back to spatial audio using 360 VME, which is something that I personally enjoy at home. And our output is just gonna be whichever output is sending 16 channels in this case, or I guess 13 in this case, to our speakers, and then 2 outputs to our headphones. And during playback, whether we're playing through Pro Tools or the Dolby Atmos renderer, Apple Music, Apple TV, any DAW, there's an option to click on and off the speaker. So what we typically do during this part of the measurement or post-measurement is have the listener start with the headphones on, get used to hearing the music on headphones, and at their own comfort, whenever they feel like it, they're welcome to take the headphones off. Today we had one gentleman who was very quick with it and gave my colleague Suji-san a bit of a workout switching between the speakers and headphones. But often people will take them off and listen for a moment. And at that point, we will switch to the speakers and allow them to compare between the two. And often listeners are in awe of what they're hearing. Some listeners become extremely critical trying to find a difference between the two. Some will close their eyes to see if there's some sort of visual confusion or illusion that's impacting how they're perceiving sound. But nonetheless, this part of the process is the fun part. Today, for those of you who were there to join us, we had a scene from Venom playing back in 714, in which there were many sound effects flying over you, behind you, dialogue in front of you, and was really special to see the reactions from our participants. And one last part of the measurement that is optional, and I mentioned this to a gentleman today who, to his ears, and as it's been discussed tonight, everyone's ears are quite different. To his ears, there was still a frequency difference between the headphones and the speakers. And that's something that can be corrected in the 360 Virtual Mix Environment application. There's a monitor EQ section at the bottom in addition to the D-reverb, which was previously mentioned by my counterparts in Tokyo. And this can be dialed in until the listener is completely satisfied with the sound being indistinguishable on headphones and on speakers. At this point, you'll see on the right of the screen, they have the option to save the current status, which below that can later be loaded in, just like their profile is loaded in when they open 360 Virtual Mix Environment application to maintain consistency, taking that room with them wherever they go, whether that is a student who does not have access to the Atmos facilities or 5.1 facilities or 360 facilities on their campus, or if it's a working professional who is removed from their workspace, whether it's due to COVID years back as VME was used, or any circumstance such as vacation or travel. And so again, both of these can be loaded into the virtual mix environment to allow the 360 VME user to take their studio or the listening space of their choice with them wherever they go. And that concludes my portion of tonight. I am putting this email on the screen for those of you that do have questions for myself and my team. Would welcome your feedback from the measurements today, as well as your questions. And welcome those, happy to answer those, work with you to ensure that you get your profile working. I'll be sending those over in the next week or so for those of you who were measured. And for those who are interested in getting measured, whether by Sony directly or a partner of Sony's, please do not hesitate to reach out to the email there. I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
And with that, I'd like to introduce Kimberly Jimenez, who's coming from the back, I see. Kimberly is the Senior Vice President of Post-Production here at Sony Pictures Entertainment, and she has a team that she's brought with us of users who will talk to us about the experience. Take whatever seat.
All right. First, welcome everybody to Sony Pictures. We're really thrilled to have you guys here for this event. On this panel, we have Santiago. He has been one of the liaisons between Sony post-production and Sony R&D. He's been instrumental in kind of connecting our technical side with our creative side. Next to him, we have Stephen Ticknor, who's sound designer, sound supervisor, re-recording mixer, jack of all trades, and has had experience using VME in the workplace. And on the end there, we have Avo, who is our sound engineer, one of our strongest engineers that we have. We have actually an unbelievable engineering department, and Avo is one of the members of that group. He has been instrumental in not only also helping to develop the technology, but he also is there to fine-tune and is one of the master measurers of the tool itself. So I want to welcome these guys here. Avo, we'll start with you. With the measuring process, do you see or find a difference between when you're measuring clients, let's say producers, directors versus sound professionals? What do you find?
That's a very good question. So firstly, everybody's ears are different. So we're getting a different measurement response with every set of ears. I find that the sound editors are way more critical. So they'll be the ones who are switching back and forth and want to tweak the EQ. But for the most part, they are all very consistently blown away from the technology every single time.
And then, Steve, obviously you've had some practical use of this technology. Why don't you share a little bit with the group?
Well, I think COVID's been brought up, and I think we've all had a lot of transition. And the reality is that this was brought to us before COVID, and I think a lot of us in the field were just like, we're all using speakers now. We're all in an environment we don't, what do we need headphones for? And the truth is that COVID came, and then everybody and their mother was like, we need a pair. Whatever it is, we're working from home, and we started diving in with the Sony engineers from Tokyo and giving our feedback. For example, we asked for a meter bridge in the software so that we can actually see the audio that we were working on. not just listen to it, so we could have an idea when we were doing panning, what's going on. They started developing headphones. The headphones at first, when we were blasting our heads off working on movies, started to vibrate. They started figuring out solutions on how to stop the vibration. And that's why the headphones, you can put in any headphone, but the level and the focus on making you have a professional sound was worked on so that things like low frequency wouldn't shake the headphones off your head. It actually works. So not only that, then there was the actual measurements. Things started evolving as well. So as we're starting using these things and COVID is lasting and lasting, things are getting better. The center at first wasn't as good as we needed, and that started getting better. And now when you look at it, there's ways where they can sit you in one room and measure you, and then you can choose a stage here at this studio or other studios and put yourself in that environment. I do think that the evolution of the way they're measuring people is making the actual quality of the sound better because they're getting more sophisticated. Today we're using VME as a very practical product. When we're working here and you have a director who's in New York or London or wherever, we can go live and they can put on, once they've been measured, they can be put on a pair of headphones and we can be playing back a dub. Now, like anything else, you're not going to replace a humongous 50-foot screen from a laptop. That's reality. But the fact that we can have engaged a director or producer in a mix when they're not there, it's a huge win because they're hearing what we're doing, they're giving us notes, the mix is progressing, we're not sitting waiting for them to come. So it's not only a tool for people to use as a mixing tool, it's a tool that we can use in many other ways. And we're just learning how to expand because environments change, workflows changed. People don't, it's just, we're much more flexible. And that's what it's brought to us.
And then, Gil, for you, because you have had a lot of experience not only dealing with the R&D side with the Tokyo team, but also with the creative team, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges and what have been some of the biggest wins in this technology from your perspective?
And Kim, is so interesting. We're watching Doug's presentation and you see this beautiful software, everything works, and it's kind of not our experience. Our experience is this thing doesn't work, we don't have a GUI, we have to edit all the parameters in like a code. So you got to learn all these hundreds lines of codes of parameter, what this means. And thanks to your team, and of course, and when Ticknor mentioned about the bridge, is because if we have a bridge, it's because he said, there was a time that there wasn't a meter bridge. All these things that sound very logical to us now. It's like, oh yeah, of course, you need a bridge. Oh, you need a solo and mute. No, they're not logical to a lot of people if they're not professionals. Our research team, not necessarily they are audio engineers, they are computer scientists mostly. So all these things, we need the feedback. So Ticknor actually was a great person to give feedback. A lot of the things that you see in the software came from him. The speaker, it was one thing that he complained a lot in the beginning, guys, we need, and then we telling the team in Tokyo, guys, we got these complaints about they need to be able to listen to the speaker in an easier way. It's like, wow, can they just change all the cables and reroute? It's like, no, they cannot. So yeah, it took time, but honestly, I think that because we have this ability to get the feedback and go and bother Steve and say, hey, Steve, do you have a little bit of time? Can you come and provide this feedback? And this is what built VME, what we know today. And even talking about the headphone, we did not start with headphones. We were using another company's headphone for a long time. And it got to the point that our software was doing a very good job. And then we come to Steve, what now, right? We're doing these rounds of feedbacks and he's like, yeah, this is pretty good, but I cannot use this for a lot of time because it bothers my head. It's like, okay, so we got to the point that, let's address the headphone. And that's when, it evolved to, hey, maybe we should make a headphone. And yeah, it went from there. So it's it has been a very like exciting journey to work with you guys, with these guys here and your team as well. So yeah.
I mean, I think one of the best parts about being able to work at a company like Sony is that, you know, obviously it's an entertainment company. We produce films, we do post-production, we do all these things, but we're also a technology company. So to be able to kind of combine those things when we have these kind of new things that are getting developed. I mean, I started in 2018 here. They were just starting to develop, you know, kind of prototypes for VME. And then COVID did hit. We said, listen, I know you're working on this technology, but if you could speed it up a little bit, that would be amazing. And they did. They started really kind of putting the pedal to the metal, and with Gil's help and with a lot of the talent like Steve and engineers like Avo, we've been able to really continue to fine-tune this technology into something that's really useful, not just for the professionals, right? Professionals find it very useful if you're in an editorial room that's 10 by 10 and you're creating sound for the Anthony Quinn mix stage, which is clearly bigger than 10 by 10. It's going to give you reference. It's going to give you that opportunity to really listen to what you're creating in the sound that you're creating it for. So that's great for the professional side, but for also the talent side, or for the client side. When you do have a director that is in a different country, or honestly just in a different city, they don't want to drive 2 hours to get, you know, 10 miles. Or in Malibu. But it's been an opportunity for us to be able to have these clients give their genuine feedback. If you've been in any part of our business, you get a lot of feedback from somebody that's listening to it on an iPad, right? Or on their headphones from their phone. But to be able to actually play these things back for them in a real environment where they can actually give useful, credible notes that everybody can hear consistently, that's a very powerful thing.
There was about 20 to 30 people that worked in the sound side of it. It wasn't just one person's ideas. The engineers were, we all became friends, and it was a very interesting, you know, cooperative. I think there's been a lot of growth from that, and I believe there's a lot of promise for new technology that is growing out of, you know, the collaboration of skill. And there's a skill set that we all have earned and worked for in sound, and everybody is specialized. And I think that engineering has seen that there's a balance between pure science and art, and I really think that this was one of the first examples of an art form being used to create a good science, and it has created a really helpful, useful tool. Now we all know in this room, I'm sure there's other programs out there that claim to do the same thing or similar. It's not smoke and mirrors. What this product does is just a lot of hard work with a lot of science, with a lot of creative people, putting in input just to try to make something functional that actually says what it does. It's just not a beautiful poster. It's a functioning, usable tool.
And I would say also, you know, not only did R&D do a lot of development with obviously the technology itself, but our team, spearheaded again by Avo, God bless him, did a lot of improvement on the measurement itself, like the actual measurement itself. So, I mean, Avo, do you want to talk a little bit about how that's kind of evolved over the course of the last several years?
Yes, absolutely. So throughout the course of the evolution, there's all these tweaks happening from the software side, the monitor EQ, the de-reverb, which was a big advantage to the software. And I just want to take the moment to acknowledge that this is an all software-based solution with an AAX plugin for Pro Tools, which makes the flexibility so important and so critical. Whether we're down mixing 5.1, 7.1, 7.14, 9.16, whatever it is, you route it through Pro Tools and you could come out to any output. It just makes the stage integration so seamless because all of that rendering is happening on the software side. as an AAX plugin. And with those developments of having the de-reverb, so if you get scanned in a large space, such as the Cary Grant Theater, you're an editor, and then you go back to your edit suite, and you put your headphones on, all of a sudden you're hearing a huge space in your smaller edit suite. And it was those advancements such as de-reverb where you could just pull the time back and manipulate the time domain on the impulse response. And you're taking some of that room out, the room sound, but you're still getting that full spatialization. You're getting the full binaural effect to your ears. So there were so many tools like that that just, it kept getting advanced and tweaked. Like a lot of good inputs from Steve that were brought up.
And I'll mention one that it's credit to the engineers. In the beginning, I remember doing measurements with Avo, with Ben, the other members of the team, and sometimes we didn't know exactly how to solve some problems. If you gave us some glitch on the measurements, like, okay, how do we solve? Okay, let's call Japan. What time is now in Japan? 3, okay, they'll pick up. 3, it's fine. They'll pick up at 3 in the morning. Then they added comments. Sometimes it's very simple. They added comments. So when we make a measurement and if it gives us a glitch, there's a comment. It's like, try this. And before we didn't have this. It's something so simple, but it makes so much difference. And it was all comments from the engineering teams. Like, guys, we could use this.
Yeah, and I do feel, also just I think when we first started doing the setup, it would take a half an hour to get the rig set up, 30 minutes to try and measure somebody, and then another half an hour, 40 minutes to break it down. And now, actually, again, with the genius of Avo and the team, we've got now a measurement box that we use here on the lot where we're literally able to plug in within 10 minutes setup. I mean,
don't quote me on that. But
okay.
Yeah.
10-ish minutes on setup. But we're able to really make the process so seamless and so quick. It's not only great, again, for the mixers and the talent, it's really great when you're talking about bringing a client in and not having them sit there for 30 minutes waiting for something to get set up. It's pretty remarkable what both teams have done, both on the R&D side in Japan as well as the team here.
And I just want to paint the picture a little bit for that. So, because we're always on the schedule of the director or the showrunner, and we would just get within a moment's notice, hey, the director wants to do a scan. Can you be ready in 3 minutes? And we're like, wait, what? Okay, so at first we'd have to lug around a custom-made PC, load up this custom software, use 3 different interfaces that all need to clock to the room's clock. And it would take, 50 minutes to an hour if we're lucky, if everything just worked out to be right. But now, as the software advanced and we kept getting feedback and, the processing got lighter on the development side, now, we could set up so quick, which would happen a lot of times during lunch, the lunch break. We'd get a call like, hey, we want to do 2 scans. We come in as soon as they break, set it up, set up the content, and we'd be ready to go.
Yeah, it's been a really remarkable collaboration across the board. I think we're very fortunate to not only have a great team in Japan developing this kind of technology, but we have a great team here, a collaborative team of engineers, of talent, of different kinds of creatives, executives even from our own studio, and really have not only embraced the technology, but are really invested in making sure that it works the way it's supposed to, and that it's really of value to the community, especially to the sound community. So I think we're very fortunate in that regard, and I think it's a pretty rare thing. So it's one of the things I'm most proud of, for sure. Any other comments from you guys as far as? All right. Yep.
Hold your places, because at this point, what we'd like to do is open the floor for question and answer. So we've got some roving mics, or at least one I see. So if you got a question, raise your hand, and Mark will bring a mic. Here we go. We've got one here. Got a live one.
Yeah, a few decades ago, I actually got some quadraphonic headphones. There were headphones, but they had like 2 speakers in each one, and they could play back quadraphonic recordings. Now, there wasn't very many, so the headphones didn't really go far, but it had a little attachment, a little box that was in line, and you could actually change like the spatial configurations and stuff like that. Does any of that kind of technology bleed into yours? Do you go back and look at old patents that might be applicable in the past to what you're trying to do?
I mean, I think, from our perspective, we have, when we go to Japan every year for one of the technology fairs that they have out there, and one of the things we will look at is they have a breakdown of all of these different technologies, old and new. I think the team that's out there has such a healthy respect for the technology that's already been developed. I can't imagine that they don't look at that either, even for just inspiration, if for nothing else. But I do feel like it's probably something that they at least keep in mind.
I think most likely this was from the bottom scratch from the beginning. I think they took a concept and they went without any sense of, oh, there was something 20 years ago, let's use that. I think this was more like anything else, like we see how technology evolves. We always think that it can never get better. I mean, 20 years ago, people stopped buying headphones. They just didn't need them. And then portable audio came out. And all of a sudden, headphones started advancing. And then the next thing you know, it's like there's this company called Beats, and they're just blowing the market away. And I think that's part of the fact that we're all environmentally affected. So I think the environment affects smart people on the artistic side and on the technology side. And I would say this is something that was absolutely invented from the environment that we live in, not something from the past. And that's what it grew from.
I'll make one quick comment. General manager of the audio section, Okimoto-san, he's been researching HRTF for 20 years. I'll just say that. So where we are today, definitely it's part of it. Yeah. So from many products, of course, I think that where we are today, we rely a lot on computing power to be able to process this and that speed. So,
as I understand what you're presenting an environment to someone on headphones. How often does the environment change? How often does somebody say, I want Carnegie Hall, or I want Lincoln Center, or I want the Disney Hall is my environment? How often does that happen?
Well, depending on who you're talking to, all the time. So we've definitely had instances where, if we have, let's say, Steve's got probably a profile for every single stage that we have on the Sony lot, right? There are definitely clients that have several profiles created for each of these different individual places, specifically because they want to ensure that if they are mixing somewhere on this lot, that they have the ability to say, I'm in my mix is happening in the Burt Lancaster Theater. So I would like to make sure that I hear a playback on that. So we have done multiple measurements of the same person in different spaces specifically to manage that.
If I can give you a good example, if you're a skier and you go to the mountains and you ski on different mountains, and then you go to Sports Chalet and they have a demo ski thing and they can create any environment you want in a warehouse, it's good, it works really well, but it's not like being on the mountain skiing, okay? So being in one of a $5 million dub stage is an incredible experience to work in, and we've all been given the gift of having those environments to work with. But when you're working with the headphones, you're working at home, you're working in a different environment, and we're trying to give people the as close to what we can experience. You can't move these rooms to anybody's home. So we're trying to go there, and the technology is getting better and better, and it's still going to get better.
And just very quickly to speaking from the space, the measurement system side, we're modeling the room. As a SMPTE member, I could make a shout out that all our rooms are calibrated to SMPTE 2096-1-2. So all of our rooms have the same sonic footprint in terms of the system calibration. It's just the space that's changing, the amount of air that's within it.
The check is in the mail, thank you.
So following that same kind of theme that we're talking about, so you would need to get profiled for every type of room that you want to be in, or once you get your profile measured, then you could say, can I get an environment file that you load in and say, I want to mix in a larger space or a different space?
Yeah.
Because all these sound, some of these sound stages are huge and some are small
Correct.
rooms.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we definitely, again, we want to make sure when we do a measure, and we will ask generally, hey, when you're coming in, why don't we measure in several different spaces so that we ensure that they have the profile in case the room changes. If there's a temp mix in one stage and the final mix is in another, being able to measure a single person in both makes that possible. And I will also say the portable box that we've built makes it easy enough to take it from one room and literally wheel it to the other, plug it in, and do the measurement.
But there are bridge technologies that are for measuring that would be able to say, let's say there's 30 rooms that they've chosen around the world, and you would just take one measurement, and they're figuring out ways to take that one measurement so you could work in any of the 30 rooms without having to go to 30 rooms.
Steve, I've got a question as a fellow professional complainer. Can you tell me about the AAX plugin?
So the AAX plugin, I mean, it works just like you would normally work. What I found is personally that I like to use it as a standalone, because when you're getting heavily into mixes, the DSP can get really intense. And when you're trying to do everything that you would normally do with a room of engineers, that I feel like the computer just works better as a standalone, just as a plug-in insert for playbacks. That's fine, but when you're running a million different plugins and software, then there's times where you have to say, okay, a 20-minute reel is fine, but if it's a television show and it's a 45-minute reel, it doesn't matter how fast your computer is.
Well, but so given that that's the case, do you run it standalone on a separate machine or on the same machine?
Same machine for some reason.
There's some parts that I would disagree with. Earlier on, that was the case. It was a DSP hog, right, and we would barely be able to use one instance on our recorder. Now, with the latest version, we're throwing 3 different instances in one recorder session along with all the Dolby Atmos tracks. So it's gotten really good, very lightweight, very fast.
So Steve has been there since before it was an AAX plugin. So in the beginning, he asked for an AAX. We gave an AAX, and he's like, guys, we want a standalone. Then we build the standalone as well.
Yeah, it's gotten a lot better, a lot better.
So I'm just curious about the interface of the standalone versus the interface of the AAX plugin.
It's the same.
It's the same. It's exactly the same. It's just a setup. You would set your IOs to run through the. Yeah.
I'd like to request that we keep the questions on the mic, because otherwise we're not going to.
Okay, John.
Next.
So wondering if, as you're switching between the different acoustic environments, representing stages of different size where you'd have different editing positions, is there any accommodation of where the monitor sits relative to you? You kind of want to hit the corners of the screen with certain speaker positions, or does that come into play at all?
You're talking about comparing different rooms with each other. Well, during the scanning process, we have carefully chosen the 916 positions in every room so that that difference is very minimal, whether we're scanning a small, medium, or very large dub stage. That 916 imaging is going to translate very well between all three sizes.
Yeah, just in a general, as a general thing, I mean, all of our stages, we have worked very much to make sure that all of them translate well between one another, from the 20 by 30 size room to 40 by 100 size room. So we've definitely done that in a general sense for all of our stages to make sure that the translation is very strong.
And I think as the technology advances, you probably see some type of goggles that you can actually feel like you're sitting in the room that you're listening to while you're working. I mean, that's just
yeah, I'm not saying that's happening now, but
yeah,
should I make a note of that?
No.
But I'm not saying it's not happening.
I just think naturally it's just commonplace, the things like that, because there's an experience that you have when you're sitting in a room, and it affects the way your mind thinks, the way you mix, the way you listen, the way you watch. I think that all those things are obviously, at some point necessary.
So we build a lot of post facilities all over the place, and we deal a lot of smaller facilities like maybe Asylum Entertainment in Burbank and different like that. So what I'm concerned about is creating some kind of paper standards that I can go to them and say, hey, if you want this technology in your system, they don't have the resources or maybe have you guys come in to scan because they have I have clients, small post facilities all over the country, and in Baton, Louisiana, and Vermont, and stuff like that. So, how can we roll this out to the small guys?
Yeah, I mean that's actually something that we've had a lot of conversation about. One of the reasons why we created this measurement box to begin with was to make that process a much easier process, right? So being able to go out to a small facility and let's say you have 10 people that you want to measure, we now have the ability to take this mobile measuring kit and get out there and do that measurement in an efficient way, both with time and with setup. We have to look at also, we know how we can take one of our engineers here and have them measured in Los Angeles, but what about New York? What about UK? What about Ireland? That's one of the things that we're working towards right now. We have a client that is going to be mixing in Ireland, but doesn't want to keep getting on a plane to do a playback. So we're going to go out there and kind of use this as a bit of a test to see how it works with not only this box, but with the process, and continue to fine tune it. Just like Sony R&D is continuing to fine tune this technology, we're continuing to fine tune the approach of the measurement.
Yes, are you locked into using the MP1 headphone?
It's highly recommended. I think you have the ability to use any headphones, but because that's what we measure with, that's the standard of which we measure, it's really, you're going to get the optimal outcome with measuring with the MP1, or with the MP1.
In the calibration portion, there are parameters related to the headphone model. So could we do with other headphones? We could. Ideally, the person that's measuring would sit and do all sorts of testing for a long time. Usually, takes an engineer here that's very experienced, maybe a day or two, to find those right parameters to match. Do you want that work? Maybe yes, maybe not. I don't know. A part of that is that also the headphone's very optimized for this use case. So for you guys working at really high standards, the margins do matter. That's why we highly recommend it. Why would you,
I mean, these headphones were created and designed specifically because of VME. So that's why we're always, recommended strongly. But yes, you can use other headphones. It is possible.
There's got to be more questions out there.
I will say also, just as a note, I know there's a lot of concerns about, well, if you can just mix in these headphones, we've talked about this a couple times even tonight, are we getting rid of the spaces? Do we need these spaces? And the answer is still yes. Our process is still a very creative process, and having everybody in the room is an important part of that process. We can have Zoom meetings or Teams meetings in the office on an operational side, and that doesn't work. My team, the post-production team, we're all coming into the office every day, not because we can't do our jobs from home, we can, but it's more effective and more efficient and more creative when we're all in the office together. Same thing on a mix stage, and I think it's important to kind of understand that this is not supposed to be a replacement for the mix stage. This is supposed to be a tool for us to be able to use so that we have the ability to do more, to test more, to do better work.
And also to just add comment on a very specific use case here on one of your teams. I don't want to mention because the person didn't authorize it to mention, but there's a team here that they actually use VME in the stage while someone's actually using the speaker. If you have a dialogue mixer and someone doing effects, hey, why not? Someone else is on headphones, and now you're actually using the room twice in the same room. So that's a very specific use case. They make it work flawlessly, so yeah.
Well, how do they do that with open back mic headphones? Because I tried to do that earlier during the test, and they told me I shouldn't.
Yeah, so with VME, a lot of things are related based on our experience to the user. Some people will have higher thresholds to work on over certain things than others, right? So in this specific team, I know that they can operate at a lower volume at the beginning, and then they crank it up later on, then they use new one. But at the beginning of the day, they can work a lot, just basically one person's own speakers, but it's not blasting 85,
Yeah, and sometimes they'll both work on headphones at the same time.
See, that makes sense, because then you're not going to really hear each other's noise.
Yeah.
And they don't want to talk to each other.
That's
obviously. Exactly.
I think also, keep in mind that, again, Sony continues to develop not just this technology, but other tools. So, this is the headphone that we use right now. This is what's been developed now. That's not to say that we're not continuing to work towards other technologies to do sound cancellation in those big spaces, so that there's still the ability to mix in the environment, but also edit under headphones.
My last question is about head tracking. When do we see a head tracking situation?
It's a work in progress. I've seen a demo.
It's been mentioned. I've seen it.
Been mentioned many times.
They're all talking about it.
Yes.
They're all talking about it. They know.
We have so many different versions of this with specific, this is the version for this specific user testing this feature. So head tracking is
There's the old saying that you've said to me, a movie's never finished, it's just released. It never stops. But in this situation, it's just going to keep advancing.
Can I ask how important the low 3 speakers are in front? I don't believe I've ever been to a picture since Altered States where there was a special setup in Westwood like 40-some years ago that had speakers high, mid, and low. Most everything that I've seen now in a speaker setup is just the 3 across the front, the 10 on each side, the 8 across the back, and the 20 on the top. How important is it that the environment have the lower 3 speakers? And do all your stages have the lower 3 speakers?
Well, this is your question is pertaining specifically to the 360, the Sony 360 format. And, I can't knock them for trying to add another plane in the Z plane and having, the bottom axis, which helps you differentiate when it comes to panning. So I don't know the origin to that.
Yeah, we for pictures, 360 reality audio is not a format that it's used. So your question relates very specifically towards the music in Atmos and 360 reality audio. So that honestly for pictures, Sony Pictures post-production services, it doesn't affect us. We don't have any stage with 3 lower speakers, though we actually did tests.
We did do tests.
We did tests, yeah. Not on picture side. We do have stages for music mixing that do have a 360 reality audio. Doug, if you want to comment on that.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. The lower speakers, as you saw, like in the, sorry, there's a delay. I'm going to come up here so I'm not hearing myself delayed. The lower speakers, you saw earlier that sphere, and typically like in a 916 or 714, really what we're hearing is ear level and up, what's being represented. And so there's that whole lower hemisphere that is missing. And so Sony's proprietary format, Sony 360 Reality Audio, added that back in. And I've actually worked in a studio, Media Hyperion, Herbert Waddle and Eric Schilling, both of whom have won multiple Best Immersive Album Grammys for music, utilized that lower hemisphere quite a bit. They actually added at one point rear speakers because it's an object-based format. And so, you know, we talked about earlier about phantom center and that kind of thing. It doesn't matter where you place an object, it's going to create a perceived sound there. But part of the thinking there is on headphones. A lot of people have a hard time perceiving height. And particularly like if you go in VME and solo, the height channels, it's a lot harder to, like with a standard hearing profile, it's a lot harder to perceive those channels than it is the surrounds. And so adding that lower hemisphere is something that creates more contrast in height. And so if I have a timpani, or let's say like if I have a string section, I have a cello or a bass that's stacked, you know, with the rest of the strings and maybe violas or violins higher, on headphones I'm able to, my brain's able to perceive the contrast in height better and therefore better identify where those objects are. And so that's the reason for it, but like has been mentioned here, not something that's being used presently for film, which is why, you know, they created VME to be format agnostic. And so whether it's 5.1, 714, we do use it for 360 reality audio, but of course it's something that Sony made. They want people to, they want it to solve as many problems as they can. And so they didn't want to limit it to just the proprietary Sony format, and therefore 714 and 916 are all in play.
So ultimately, no. We don't have those in the studio. The shortest answer to your question is no, we don't have the lower speakers for the, not for television or feature. For music, yes, but not for television and feature.
To just jump on a little bit of what Doug mentioned, we can actually, the 360 VME is basically, we calibrate a speaker in an environment. If we put like my phone here and we measure from that point, we'll get my phone here from that listening point. So we could use this for many things. We got approached by theme parks as well to get measurement. You know, you don't get access to roller coasters in the middle of the day, so it would be good if you could mix them from home. Yeah, so all these other environments that usually are outside of the mixing either music or film and TV, everything, it works.
You know, I think my own take is I think the marketing people kind of screwed up a little bit because these are two separate things using 360, and that's confusing people. It's
as far as the format
VME
versus the VME?
is one thing, and the 360, whatever it is.
Reality.
Thank you.
So, right.
Those are two different things.
They are two different things.
But because they're both 360, it confuses most people.
All right, well, we'll let the marketing people know. Well, I'm here to take notes. You guys let me know what else we need to do.
You can put it on me.
I'm totally ready.
I'll tell you this. This was mentioned at a time that it could, and it was just, you know, this is a big company with lots of people making lots of decisions at a speed that not always we can interfere.
Yeah.
So I have a weird question. How do I take this stuff home with me? How do I?
Which stuff home? The profiles?
Yeah, the profiles, and be able to use it in my own environment rather than,
right.
you know, a Pro Tools and a mix suite and the whole bit.
So the.
Doug said that you could, I think Doug said that.
Yeah, there's the email that's up here.
If you've got the measurements, they're going to send you the measurements, and then you'll be able to have the profiles and the software, and just hit him up. in his inbox.
Maybe not
and-
him, because he'll get a little overwhelmed, but the email up here. So basically, we have it set up to where you can email, schedule a measurement, and then have a profile created, and then you pay for the profile.
Excellent.
It's fairly simple.
Oh, over here. I knew we had more questions.
Of course.
Am I confused that we don't have to, once, because I had a profile done in the Burt Lancaster stage. So is my profile, can they then send me the Jimmy Stewart's stage, and I would then have the Jimmy Stewart stage?
Did you get measured in the Jimmy Stewart stage?
No,
as well?
I didn't. That's
Then
what I'm asking.
no.
I have to be
That's the
measured in
key.
That's
each
correct.
stage.
As of right now, and again, as I said, we are continuing to develop things so that what we're trying to do is get to a point where we can measure you in a neutral space and then measure the spaces so that we can take your profile and put it in different places. That's currently under development. So again, this technology is going to continue to evolve. And at some point, yes, we will get there. But for the time being, if you want to have your profile in Jimmy Stewart, we got to measure there.
When?
When? It's a great question.
Soon, only
Again,
not
I'm gonna put
yet.
that's right under my marketing
I
notes.
I just got scheduled for that training, so it's going to be coming up very soon.
Yes.
I
Yeah, we
haven't heard
actually
from the
are
folks back
doing,
here.
we are doing some R&D, again, because we have such collaboration with Sony. We have something here that we're working towards that development currently.
Question, and I may have missed this. We talk about taking these profiles home. Is there a standalone software that I can put on my iPhone or my Mac? And because I think we're talking about a lot of synchronous live review and mixing. That implies asynchronous, like here's a mix, take it home, make notes, give it back kind of thing?
So you can print, and it will be your profile. So it will work very well for you. But let's say that if you're sending to someone else, it will be your profile. So if that person has an ear that is very different than yours, it will sound awkward. It could be very phasey to them. Does that make sense?
But that's not what you're asking. You're asking, can you take it home? And yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you
so
can.
we've had the opportunity in production. So when we're doing a playback, we can do a live playback where we do it through, let's call it, say, Clearview, right? We will send that stream with your profile to you, and you will hear the mix as if you are in the room, right? I guess it also can be, I would say, as far as having the software on your own computer, you've paid for it, I would give that to Avo.
Yeah, you need the software. The profile gets loaded in the software. That software could be a standalone application that your entire computer audio gets routed through. So you need to be running audio through that software. And you could also use it in various DAWs as a plugin. And to what Gil was saying, is definitely the advanced method where you could actually print audio through it, so then it will become asynchronous, and you could embed it into a QuickTime.
Yeah, and we've done that with our clients multiple times. We had a client that wanted to, she lived in the Midwest and had been measured out here. And so because of the time difference, we would print, put her profile, attach her profile, send that to her. She would open it, play it in her headphones with her profile, and then send notes back. But we also have the ability to do that with a Clearview as well, or streaming.
And to add clarity, yeah, I'm going to send out the application with the profile when I send them out to those of you who were measured. So yeah, you'll have two things. You'll have the the application, then there'll be a .vme file that you load into the application. Yeah.
Questions?
Well, we're starting to run low on time anyway, but
Oh, we got time.
we have about 15 minutes more, but.
Yep.
There's one.
Hi. So I may have missed this in the beginning, but if I understand correctly, you can like modify and tweak like the EQs for like a more personalized experience once you have your profile, right?
Yes.
Okay. So let's say you tweak the EQs and make it sound really good for yourself. Does that translate into any exports that you would send out, or would you get something that's something different when you send it to be like critiqued to like a director or something?
So that profile is specifically for you and your head. It's for whoever was measured. So that audio was encoded for your ears only. So if you're gonna send audio that was encoded for your ears only to somebody else, it may not make sense to them depending on their head. So if that answers your question, so whatever you're monitoring through the profile, add it to your headphones. That is your unique experience, your unique HRTF.
Mm-hmm. And how would you go about like changing that to like translate what you hear to yourself to somebody else?
You mean like is adjusting the mix or
yeah, I guess, yeah.
I mean, that's basically, then you're just basically adjusting the mix, and when you send that mix out, they're going to hear the tweaks that you may have made.
Yeah.
So this is only in the monitor path. Yeah. Right? So you're tweaking your mix, but this is only the monitor path that we're talking about. So it's only, what you're referencing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mark, back in the back.
A follow-up to the question the gentleman asked down there. So the measuring kit, we know about measuring humans, right? You have the box, it's 10 minutes. What about measuring the spaces? Is it the same kit? Is it a different kit?
Totally different.
How long does that take in a new?
Longer.
Longer, okay. Right, is that what you were asking about more? Like how do I go to the Midwest and if someone has a studio, they do, religious services or whatever and they have a production. Is it productized,
Well, I think what you have to look at is, measuring the space. What are you measuring it for? So if you're in a church or something and you want to listen to the acoustics of what you're going to hear, again, it's measured specifically for you, right? So you can take that back and use it however, in whatever way you're creating sound or music or whatever the case may be, but it's still geared towards you. But we can measure that space. We can measure any space. It's just keeping in mind that when we measure the space the way that the software currently exists, it is measuring that space specifically for you.
Yeah, you don't want to make it too easy because you guys want to make some money on it too, right?
It would be nice.
Yeah, I mean,
Eventually, you're going to be able to have your one measurement, and there'll be measured rooms around the world. And then you'll have
did you have another question?
50, 100, 200 rooms that you can choose from that are suiting your needs.
Right.
It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, it is continuous development. And so I think, like I said before, that is the beauty of kind of being involved here, is being able to.
On this a
Well,
lot.
I don't know how much we could talk about, but we're talking like Japanese PhD level mathematicians that come out with custom robotic arms with various microphones and articulating arms, and they measure the room. I mean, it's crazy when you see it.
So usually, like Avo, they create a kit that they measure in 10 minutes. When the Okimoto team come, how long does it take to measure?
You're talking about Watanabe-san and
Yeah,
their
when
team?
Watanabe-san comes.
I mean, we're talking half a day, maybe less. I think they started first with longer, like 1 or 2 days, but then they started streamlining the technology, and they're doing like 2 rooms in 1 day.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
This group in here is obviously focused on sound, okay, and SMPTE and all the. I'm going to just tell you, as a guy in the trenches, I think the reality is that there's a million plugins, there's a million things. I'm telling you that what I've noticed with this is it's coming from a place of science. It isn't coming from a really cool GUI that just shows you a million pictures of speakers and that it's $29.95. Okay, it's coming from a place of their actual intent is to create something special.
Yeah.
I just don't believe it's there to replace anything. I think it wants to be used as an enhancement, as an alternative when necessary.
Yeah, it is. It is a tool. At the end of the day, it is a tool, and there is no gimmick to this. It is a real technology that has real applications in the real world of sound mixing. So it's, that's something that I think is important to recognize for sure.
Those are the roots, but you might as well make money on it if you can, right?
Sure, but I mean, again, like
we're not making any money.
I'm not making a dime. However, what I am doing, what I do appreciate, is the fact that we are able to basically have, we can present our stages to different creative talent, right? If I'm having all of you find people here that step into the Novak to get measured, well, you may never seen the Novak. Now you do, now you know it exists. So it may not be, I'm not making dollars and cents necessarily, but I am making reputation, I am getting a little bit of promotion. So yeah, in that regard. Absolutely.
And to talk about this, and just to complement, sorry, I know that we have a question. We are technically several separate entities that report to one big organization. So I think it's probably 5 or 6 different entities, companies in the works for this. Kim's team here, it's basically a donation of work to get this done. And yeah, so just to make sure, this is a collaboration that even at Sony level, it's something that it's being looked at with a great eyes. It's like, wow, this is great that we're collaborating with this many different teams to achieve this at this speed.
Just kind of curious, with the artistic process, what fraction of a mix is achieved at the desktop with the VME versus on stage? That's the collaborative process, but it's also for somebody creating that mix, that's where you're really there.
Let me start it off, and then I'm going to pass it to you. All right. I think the key here is that just like various other tools, this supplements the room. So it's a tool for the editors to reference in their suites. It's a tool for mixers to listen if they're not in their primary room. It's a tool for clients whenever they can't be in the room. But I think the key is that it's just another supplemental referencing tool. Just like how in a music studio, as an example, you'll have your $50,000 stereo speakers, and then you'll have your cheap $300 speakers as just a A/B switch. So you could just reference and see what it sounds like, when available.
And
And I'll tell you a reality. Our schedules are getting shorter. Our budgets are getting smaller. Work, as you guys all know, California is not getting all the work we used to. And you want to show up on a big stage and you're mixing a movie. If you're in your room and you're trying to get ahead of the game so you don't fall on your face during a final or pre-dubs, where you used to have 8 weeks to pre-dub a movie and now you have 5 days, you want to make sure that at least it's working. So you can use a tool like this in your edit suite to just get yourself in a place where it doesn't blow up in your face.
Yeah, it's a great reference tool, right? If I've got, from a scheduling and operational perspective, if I've got 2 stages going, which is now the norm for pre-dubs, I have usually somebody on the stage that they're going to be mixing on and somebody on a smaller stage, more than likely. Having that person on the smaller stage have the ability to reference the big stage. They're going to mix in the small stage. And again, our translation in the rooms is very strong, but if they want to have the confidence that when they take it to the big stage, it's going to sound like they want it to, they now have that tool where they didn't have it before. So it not only helps, I think, as far as making things more streamlined, but it also builds confidence in the work that we're creating.
Mark, over here.
You're going to use up your quota.
Let's get his steps.
Hey, I'm getting a workout on it.
Good. The only thing, I think it's fabulous, the only thing that I noticed was the physical compression of the low end. right, was missing. And I happen to have a son who bought me one of those little chest things that for Christmas that I can utilize to simulate that. But is there anything that we can do to, other than that little thing you strap on your chest to simulate the physical compression?
So, again, technology company, absolutely working on it.
Okay.
It is absolutely something. We've already done some tests with a lot of tests with haptic floor even.
Okay.
Where it has measured the frequency within the room, and then it tunes that pad to the room. So it's not just a shaking floor, it's a shaking floor based on the measurement of the room and the frequencies within the room.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
Great, thank you.
It
is fantastic.
It's the problems that you never think about. Like, okay, this room shakes like this. How much does this room shakes? Right? We never thought about how to measure that.
But now we do.
Now we do, exactly.
So it's like a VR subwoofer.
Essentially.
But yeah, pretty cool.
We'll let you know when we get it.
All right, now I have to call time.
That's it, folks. It's a wrap.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Really appreciate it.